Emperor Palpatine's daily life was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, because even the most routine moments of his day were shaped by darkness, control, and an unending hunger for power. While the Galactic Empire spread fear across a million worlds under his rule, Palpatine himself operated on a schedule that blended political manipulation with secret Sith practices. Every hour was carefully orchestrated to maintain his iron grip on the galaxy. At dawn on Coruscant, deep within his fortified Imperial palace, the Emperor was already awake and at work, preparing to bend the galaxy to his will once again. But what did that day actually look like? From his first waking moments to the depths of night, Palpatine's routine reveals the true nature of the man who ruled the Empire. No Star Wars source provides Palpatine's exact daily schedule, but Canon and Legends both document his Sith rituals, governing methods, intelligence networks, and secret experiments in detail. Using these sources, we can reconstruct what a typical day in the Emperor's life likely looked like. Around 4:30 a.m., long before the sun rose over the Imperial center, the Emperor made his way alone to the depths of the Imperial palace. While his advisors slept and stormtroopers patrolled the streets below, these early hours belonged entirely to him, a time when the galaxy's most powerful ruler indulged in rituals that no other living being was permitted to witness. In canon, this palace sat atop the ruins of the Jedi Temple, a calculated choice that Palpatine made after the fall of the Republic. Beneath the structure lay a hidden Sith sanctum known as the Shrine in the Depths. The ancient Jedi had purposely constructed their temple over this dark side nexus in an attempt to neutralize its corrupting energy. They largely succeeded in suppressing its power, though a hidden portion of the shrine remained active deep below, a secret Palpatine would later exploit for his own purposes. After transforming the temple into his Imperial palace, he claimed this ancient shrine for himself and used it as the starting point of each day. Here, surrounded by ancient Sith artifacts and absolute silence, the Emperor spent the early hours in deep meditation, connecting with dark side powers that no ordinary person could withstand. He let the dark side of the Force flow through him like a current, drawing strength from its corrupting energy and seeking visions of the future. According to the novel Tarkin by James Luceno, Palpatine believed that through intense focus on this shrine, he could eventually unlock the power to reshape reality itself. This was not idle mysticism or mere superstition. It was the core of his ambition, the foundation upon which all his other schemes were built. The galaxy's most powerful man started each day not with meetings or messages, but with rituals that would unsettle anyone who witnessed them. Both Canon and Legends agree that Palpatine spent long periods in complete seclusion during these morning hours, sometimes disappearing for days at a time while meditating and studying forbidden lore. His trusted lieutenants understood that during these periods, the Emperor was not to be disturbed under any circumstances. Those who violated this rule rarely made the same mistake twice, if they survived at all. In Legends, these sessions also served a secondary purpose, compiling all Sith teachings into what he called his masterwork, a comprehensive body of knowledge that would serve as his ultimate legacy. During these early hours, he studied ancient secrets that few others could comprehend, all in pursuit of conquering the one enemy he could not defeat through politics alone. He researched lost Jedi wisdom to find weaknesses in any remaining practitioners, studied the secret rituals of past Sith orders for techniques forgotten for thousands of years, and pored over holocrons containing the recorded wisdom of ancient Sith Lords. Whether in canon or legends, the message was the same. Palpatine's morning routine was dominated by Sith obsession and the relentless pursuit of dark side mastery. While other rulers might exercise or review briefings over breakfast, the Emperor immersed himself in darkness. By 7 a.m., having drawn sufficient power from these rituals, the Emperor emerged from his shrine to begin the mundane business of ruling an empire. And even then, a part of his mind remained focused on the greater mysteries he sought to unravel. By approximately 9:30 a.m., Palpatine shifted focus to the political machine he had built over decades of careful planning. The Empire did not run itself, and although the Emperor preferred to remain in the shadows whenever possible, he still needed to guide its direction and ensure his subordinates remained on the proper course. In Tarkin, Palpatine addressed governance by meeting with his inner circle of Imperial advisors and officials. His Grand Vizier, Mas Amedda, oversaw the daily bureaucracy of the Empire while Palpatine immersed himself in darker pursuits. Amedda had served alongside Palpatine since the days of the Republic, and he understood his master's preferences better than almost anyone. He filtered information, managed schedules, and ensured that only the most pressing matters reached the Emperor's attention. These high-level meetings took place in the Emperor's throne room high atop the Imperial Palace, a chamber designed not for comfort, but for intimidation. The space was vast and dimly lit, with the Emperor's throne positioned on a raised platform that forced visitors to look up at him. During the early years of the Empire, Palpatine still convened a puppet Imperial Senate, largely to placate public opinion and maintain a facade of democracy. Senators debated and voted on legislation, never realizing that their decisions had already been predetermined by the Emperor's will. This arrangement served Palpatine's purposes well, giving the citizenry an illusion of representation, while allowing him to rule unchallenged behind the scenes. One notable example of Palpatine's governing style comes from the novel Tarkin, which describes a meeting between the Emperor and Governor Wilhuff Tarkin. Palpatine listened calmly as Tarkin advocated for ruthless measures against resistant star systems, using overwhelming military force and appointing regional governors called Moffs to enforce order in distant sectors. The Emperor did not argue or debate these proposals. He simply approved what aligned with his vision and dismissed what did not, his quiet voice carrying absolute finality. Palpatine never needed to raise his voice in these meetings. Everyone in the room understood that his soft-spoken directives carried the weight of absolute authority, and that crossing him meant certain doom. This approach defined how Palpatine managed the Empire throughout his reign. He encouraged ambition and ruthlessness in his subordinates, then gave their proposals his blessing when they suited his goals. Day-to-day operations, however, rarely required his direct involvement. He delegated extensively, trusting his advisors to handle routine matters while he focused on the grander schemes that truly interested him. Only once the first Death Star became operational did Palpatine dissolve the Senate entirely, handing direct control to his regional governors, a move that completed his shift to absolute rule. With the Death Star's planet-destroying capability as his enforcement mechanism, he no longer needed the pretense of democratic governance. In Legends, the political structure was similar, but with key differences in personnel. Sate Pestage served as Grand Vizier, running the Empire's day-to-day affairs and handling most routine matters of governance. Unlike in Canon, where Mas Amedda holds this influential position, Legends place Pestage at the top of the administrative hierarchy, with Amedda playing a less prominent role. These men had served Palpatine for decades and understood their roles perfectly. They existed to serve, never to question or advise unless specifically asked. His advisors learned to interpret his moods carefully, reading meaning in every gesture and inflection. A single disapproving glance could end careers or lives. This arrangement allowed the Emperor to distance himself from mundane governance while still exerting total control over major decisions. Those who pleased him might receive generous rewards, but those who failed him would face terrible consequences. The Imperial sourcebook describes meetings where Palpatine would listen to reports with an expression of mild disinterest, offer vague remarks that his advisors struggled to interpret, and then dismiss the council without explanation. His subordinates were left to guess at his intentions and implement policies they hoped aligned with his vision. This uncertainty was purposeful. It kept everyone off balance and ensured that no one ever felt secure enough to plot against him. Presumably at 12 p.m., while Palpatine rarely appeared in public, preferring to rule from the shadows of his palace, his influence extended into every corner of the galaxy. The Emperor maintained an elaborate network of spies, informants, and enforcers whose reports flowed directly to him through multiple overlapping channels. Nothing of significance happened anywhere in his empire without Palpatine eventually learning of it. In Star Wars Rebels and Andor, the Imperial Security Bureau served as the Empire's secret police, rooting out dissent and monitoring potential threats with ruthless efficiency. ISB agents operated on nearly every Imperial world, blending into local populations and filing reports that eventually made their way to the Emperor's attention. The Emperor was kept regularly informed of galactic events through summaries from the ISB and his advisors, staying aware of uprisings, criminal organizations, political rivals, and any other developments that might affect his rule. But the ISB was only one part of Palpatine's surveillance apparatus. He also deployed far darker agents to hunt his most formidable enemies. The Inquisitors, dark-side agents trained by Darth Vader at Palpatine's command, pursued hidden Jedi like Canon and others who had survived Order 66. Each Inquisitor was a former Jedi who had been broken and turned to the dark side, making them uniquely suited to hunting their former comrades. While most Jedi were hunted down in the years following the Purge, a few remarkable individuals managed to evade detection for decades. Grandmaster Yoda survived in exile on Dagobah until the Battle of Endor, remaining hidden and undetected throughout the Imperial era. In Legends, sources like Heir to the Empire explain that Yoda chose a dwelling near Dagobah's dark-side nexus specifically to cloak his Force signature from Palpatine, though no canon source explicitly confirms this detail. Obi-Wan Kenobi remained hidden on Tatooine for nearly 2 decades, living as a hermit and watching over young Luke Skywalker from afar. These exceptions only proved how thorough Palpatine's hunt had become, and how remarkable it was that anyone escaped at all. Through the ISB and the Inquisitors, Palpatine ensured that no threat went unnoticed for long. His web of control stretched across the entire galaxy. In the early years of Imperial rule, Palpatine's forces crushed isolated uprisings before they could spread or inspire others. When a planet resisted, the response was swift and overwhelming. Imperial Star Destroyers would appear in orbit, troops would deploy to the surface, and the resistance would be stamped out with ruthless efficiency. This pattern repeated countless times across the galaxy, teaching potential rebels that defiance was futile. However, by 2 BBY, scattered rebel cells began uniting under Mon Mothma's leadership to form the Alliance to restore the Republic. Canon depicts Mon Mothma's famous holographic speech rallying the Alliance in 2 BBY, broadcast openly on the Holonet in defiance of Imperial censorship, which formally created the Rebel Alliance. This event, shown in Star Wars Rebels, represented a moment that Palpatine's agents failed to stop, marking the point when his iron grip began to crack. Despite his vast intelligence network, hope still grew into open rebellion, and the Alliance ultimately grew strong enough to challenge the Empire openly. In the Hand of Thrawn trilogy, Palpatine's intelligence apparatus was even more extensive and secretive, extending far beyond conventional spies and informants. Beyond the ISB and military intelligence, the Emperor employed a group of elite agents known as the Emperor's Hands, Force-sensitive operatives who answered only to him. These agents operated completely outside the normal chain of command, taking orders directly from Palpatine and reporting to no one else. The most famous of these operatives in Legends was Mara Jade, who served Palpatine faithfully for years before his downfall. Mara possessed a direct mental connection to the Emperor, allowing him to communicate with her across vast distances and guide her actions in real time. This bond made her an incredibly effective agent, capable of carrying out missions that would have been impossible for ordinary operatives. The Emperor's Hands answered only to Palpatine himself, operating in complete secrecy. They could be sent anywhere at any time to neutralize a threat before it materialized, retrieve an artifact of dark-side power, or simply observe and report on individuals the Emperor found interesting. Thanks to this network, combined with conventional intelligence, Palpatine often knew about dangers before they fully emerged. Whether it was a traitorous governor planning a coup, a rumor of rebellion on a distant world, or a Jedi who had escaped Order 66, the Emperor's network would identify them. He would then dispatch agents or fleets to neutralize the problem quietly. Most threats were dealt with before they ever became public knowledge. For Palpatine, a typical day involved these unseen battles waged across the galaxy. Information flowed in from thousands of sources, and orders flowed out in response. The web of control never stopped working, and neither did the Emperor. Likely around 3 p.m., beyond politics and security, Palpatine also maintained an Imperial court, a sphere of close advisors, officials, and dignitaries who surrounded him in the palace. When he chose to appear before them, these moments were carefully staged to reinforce his power and remind everyone present of their place in his hierarchy. In Return of the Jedi and Star Wars Rebels, the Emperor rarely showed himself to the galaxy at large. He preferred to rule from the shadows, issuing commands through intermediaries and allowing his reputation to precede him. But when he did address a gathering or receive a visitor in person, the event was steeped in formality and fear. Every detail was orchestrated to maximize the psychological impact on those fortunate or unfortunate enough to be granted an audience. Palpatine often spoke in a soft voice during these appearances, yet everyone listening understood that tremendous wrath lurked behind those polite words. He seemed almost frail, choosing his words carefully and forcing courtiers to lean in just to hear him. The quiet tone was deliberate. It projected supreme confidence and kept everyone off balance, never quite certain whether they were in favor or moments away from ruin. When an Imperial officer or supplicant brought news, they typically knelt before the throne and chose their words with extreme care. Every syllable was weighed, every gesture considered. A calm nod from Palpatine could signal high favor and rapid advancement through the Imperial ranks, but a curl of his lip or a flash of his yellowed eyes sent fear through the ranks. No one in his court wanted to disappoint him, because disappointment could mean demotion, disgrace, imprisonment, or far worse. Elite royal guards in crimson robes flanked the throne at all times, silent sentinels whose presence underscored the Emperor's untouchable status. Even Darth Vader stood respectfully at his master's side during these sessions, silent and still like a black-armored sentinel. The sight of the towering Sith Lord deferring to the robed Emperor reinforced the hierarchy of dread that Palpatine had constructed. If Vader, the most feared being in the galaxy next to Palpatine himself, showed such deference, what chance did ordinary mortals have? In the Empire Betrayal comics, Palpatine's court was a place of constant intrigue and peril, where a single misstep could prove disastrous. Advisors competed for his favor while secretly fearing his displeasure, forming alliances and betraying each other in a constant struggle for ambition and survival. The Emperor encouraged this atmosphere, believing that fear and rivalry made his subordinates easier to control and less likely to unite against him. A member of the court who faltered might suddenly find the Emperor's attention fixed upon them, and that attention could prove disastrous. On one occasion, an Imperial officer's attempted coup only reinforced the court's fear when Palpatine survived an attempt on his life and disposed of all conspirators by the next day. Stories like this spread throughout the court, reinforcing the atmosphere of dread that surrounded Palpatine and ensuring that even the most ambitious courtiers thought twice before plotting against their master. Sometimes in the early evening, Palpatine's attention often turned to his apprentice, Darth Vader. The dynamic between master and apprentice defined the Empire's inner workings, and their interactions formed a constant undercurrent throughout each day. This was not merely a working relationship, it was the core of Sith tradition. In canon, Palpatine communicated with Vader regularly, whether face-to-face in the throne room or via hologram across the vast distances of space. These conversations followed a consistent pattern. Vader would kneel before his master's image, and Palpatine would issue his instructions with calm authority. The formality never wavered, even after decades of service. The Emperor entrusted Vader with matters of enormous importance, yet he never forgot that an apprentice might one day covet the master's throne. During the Galactic Civil War, Palpatine contacted his apprentice to inform him of a new threat: Luke Skywalker, the young rebel pilot who had destroyed the first Death Star. The Emperor's raspy voice conveyed both urgency and dominance as he ordered Vader to hunt down the boy who could destroy us. Luke must not be allowed to become a Jedi, Palpatine insisted. This command revealed something crucial about the Sith relationship. Palpatine trusted Vader to carry out his will, but the rule of two ensured this tension was built into their very existence. Palpatine made clear to all Imperial officers that Vader spoke with the Emperor's own voice. A command from Lord Vader was as good as a command from Palpatine himself. This elevated Vader above every other subordinate in the Empire and ensured that military personnel obeyed him without question. Those who challenged Vader's authority quickly discovered the consequences of such defiance. Yet the Emperor also kept secrets from Vader and maintained psychological control over him through careful manipulation, constantly reminding his apprentice that he was replaceable. He reminded Vader of past failures, questioned his commitment, and occasionally hinted that a replacement could be found if Vader proved unworthy of his position. Indeed, shortly after the Death Star's demise, the Emperor secretly commissioned Dr. Cyclo to create enhanced cybernetic warriors as potential replacements for Vader, a harsh reminder depicted in Marvel's Darth Vader comics that Vader's position depended solely on Palpatine's favor. This constant pressure kept the apprentice in a state of anxiety and dependency, never quite secure in his master's approval. In Dark Lord: The Rise of Darth Vader, the dynamic between master and apprentice was explored in even greater detail. Palpatine saw Vader as both a powerful enforcer and a constant disappointment, a shadow of what he might have become. The injuries Vader sustained on Mustafar had diminished his potential in the Force, and Palpatine never let him forget this limitation. The suit that kept Vader alive also served as a constant reminder of his failure and his dependence on the Emperor's technology. The Emperor quietly allowed rivals to rise around Vader, from Grand Admiral Thrawn in the military to his own group of dark-side adepts, as if to remind Vader that he was not irreplaceable. These rivals served multiple purposes. They provided Palpatine with alternative instruments of power, and they kept Vader motivated to prove his continued worth. The Rule of Two, the ancient Sith tradition established by Darth Vader that allowed only 2 Sith Lords at any time, meant that eventually either Vader would overthrow Palpatine or Palpatine would find a stronger apprentice. This was the way of the Sith, the strong rising to replace the weak in an endless cycle of conflict and ambition. Palpatine certainly planned for the latter possibility with characteristic thoroughness. He became keenly interested in Luke Skywalker long before their encounter on the second Death Star, and Vader understood this threat clearly. The Emperor would have gladly welcomed Luke as a new apprentice if the young Skywalker fell to the dark side, and that meant Vader's position was never truly secure. Every day he served at his master's pleasure, knowing that replacement was always possible. Despite this constant tension, Vader carried out his master's orders with relentless efficiency. He had no choice. The alternative was doom. Palpatine praised him just enough to maintain motivation, while reminding him of weaknesses to keep him humble. The master and apprentice rarely interacted without some psychological game at play, each probing the other for weakness while maintaining the facade of loyal service. Late into the night, perhaps at 11 p.m., Emperor Palpatine did not simply retire to rest like ordinary beings. For a Sith Lord of his power and ambition, the evening hours offered opportunities that daylight could not provide. While the galaxy slept, Palpatine pursued his darkest ambitions in the solitude of his private chambers. In Star Wars Rebels, Palpatine often withdrew again to his private quarters or the Sith shrine beneath the palace for late-night contemplations. In the darkness, surrounded by artifacts of dark-side power, he reflected on the day's events, victories achieved, threats neutralized, schemes advanced, and looked into the Force for glimpses of the future, seeking glimpses of what was to come. The Emperor's sleep was brief, if he slept at all. the dark side sustained him in ways that defied normal biology. Instead of resting, he spent hours studying arcane texts or communing with the dark side for visions of the future. On some days, his pursuits were more concrete, commissioning expeditions to Jedi ruins or Sith artifacts. For example, late in the Imperial era, he sought ancient portals like the secrets of the Lothal Temple and its world between worlds, as depicted in Star Wars Rebels. His ambitions stretched far beyond the present day or even the current century. As he looked out over Coruscant, he was already planning tomorrow's operations and the next century's conquests. Palpatine understood that ruling the galaxy was not enough. He needed to ensure his rule would never end, that his power would extend beyond the limitations of a single mortal lifetime. Throughout the Imperial era, the Emperor secretly pursued experiments to conquer the one enemy that threatened every living being: mortality itself. In these solitary hours, he pushed the boundaries of nature, drawing on Sith texts and obscure sciences in hopes of achieving eternal life. His laboratories hidden across the galaxy conducted research that would have shocked even his most loyal subordinates. The Aftermath trilogy by Chuck Wendig revealed that Palpatine had developed grand contingency plans for his own potential demise, preparations that extended far beyond normal succession planning. These included Operation Cinder, a protocol to punish the galaxy if he fell, devastating loyal and rebellious worlds alike in a final act of spite. He also established secret laboratories on the hidden world of Exegol, where Sith acolytes and scientists worked to ensure his designs would continue even after his apparent demise. Additionally, he seeded hidden observatories on worlds like Jakku, storing dark side lore and charting routes through the unknown regions that would eventually guide his return, as revealed in the Aftermath novels. During one meditation session, around 3 ABY, Palpatine sensed a distant disturbance in the Force, the emergence of Luke Skywalker as a powerful presence. This young rebel, strong in the Force, represented both a threat and an opportunity. The Emperor immediately began devising new schemes for turning or neutralizing this threat, demonstrating that even at day's end, he was setting future plots in motion. In Legends, Palpatine's nighttime routine was perhaps the most unsettling aspect of his existence, practices so terrible that even Vader was not permitted to witness them. According to the Book of Sith and Dark Empire sourcebook, Palpatine spent many late nights authoring his Dark Side Compendium, an encyclopedic collection of Sith knowledge and philosophy that represented his life's scholarly work. Using holocrons and ancient artifacts as his only light source, he wrote volumes with titles like The Book of Anger and The Weakness of Inferiors, recording his hatred and insights on permaglass sheets for future Sith to study. This work was intended to serve as his ultimate legacy, a guide for those who would follow in his footsteps. In secure laboratories hidden throughout the galaxy, Palpatine also conducted experiments that would have shocked even his closest advisors, research into the very nature of life and mortality itself. These projects included secret research into cloning and essence transfer, the ability to move consciousness from one body to another. His goal was immortality through any means possible, regardless of the cost in lives or resources. If his body failed, he intended to simply occupy a new one, continuing his reign indefinitely. Advisors and guards knew to leave the Emperor undisturbed during these hours, and those assigned to his personal security learned quickly that curiosity was a grave mistake. His final activities of each day might include dark-side rituals, attempts to contact ancient Sith spirits, or moments of intense focus where he glimpsed possible futures through the Force, adjusting his plans accordingly. For Palpatine, the end of the day was not a time for rest or reflection in any ordinary sense. It was an opportunity to advance his quest for ultimate knowledge and everlasting power, the twin goals that had driven him since his youth on Naboo, and which would continue to drive him until his final defeat at Endor. A day in the life of Emperor Palpatine was unlike anything else in the galaxy. From dawn meditations in his Sith shrine to late-night experiments pursuing immortality, He shaped every moment around his insatiable ambition. He manipulated advisors, monitored threats through his inquisitors and intelligence networks, dominated his apprentice through psychological manipulation, and projected an image of absolute authority to all who came before him. All while the empire he had created continued grinding forward under its own momentum. In the depths of night, as billions of beings across the galaxy slept under Imperial rule, the Emperor's work continued without pause. While others dreamed of freedom or simply survival, Palpatine schemed and plotted, pushing further into the dark side of the Force. For him, one day's triumph was simply preparation for the next. He had made the entire galaxy serve his will, and yet he still wanted more. Always more. This was just one day in the life of the galaxy's most powerful Sith, but Palpatine's story stretches far beyond any single day. From his youth on Naboo to his training under Darth Plagueis, from his rise through the Senate to his fall at Endor and beyond. To learn the complete story of how Sheev Palpatine became Emperor and everything that happened along the way, watch this video next.